You'll be making that familiar I'm trying to do a review here. You'll be making that familiar toot sound a lot while driving around in the train in The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, simply because it'll probably make the 10-year-old inside giggle with glee. Playing Spirit Tracks is just as fun and familiar. This game will bask you in the nostalgia of the Zelda series' well-trodden gameplay formulas, while adding enough changes to make it feel exciting again. And while its look will undoubtedly bring up comparisons with 2007's superb Phantom Hourglass, Link's new adventure does away with its predecessor's repetitiveness and pacing issues, making Spirit Tracks the superior of the two Zelda games available on Nintendo's handheld console. It's not just an art style that Spirit Tracks shares with Phantom Hourglass. This new game is a sequel, and while you play as a new Link, several familiar faces from the 2000 game make an appearance in Spirit Tracks. The land of Hyrule is in peril. The Demon King Meliodas is stirring, threatening to break free from the Tower of Spirits, which has been his prison for the last century, and throw off the chains that have kept him suppressed. These chains are actually the game's Spirit Tracks, a series of lines crisscrossing the world that the inhabitants of Hyrule have been using to drive their trains on. At the start of the game, you and Princess Zelda head off to investigate strange stirrings in the Tower of Spirits, but before you get there, you're attacked. The tower then breaks into several pieces, and the evil Chancellor Cole and his sidekick Burn steal Zelda's body for use as the resurrected Meliodas' new body. Zelda's spirit remains, however, becoming Link's guide as he strives to prevent the Demon King's rise and to reunite his beloved princess back with her physical form. So it's certainly a first for the series for Zelda to die, for all intents and purposes, right at the start of the game, and for her spirit to join you for the rest of the adventure, but it's not the only new addition. As well as being a Navi-like fairy companion for Link, Zelda can take control of phantoms, which are heavily armed guardians of the Tower of Spirits. Similar in concept to the Domination Rod in Twilight Princess, Zelda's phantoms will dutifully accompany Link as he explores the tower, but you can also assign them specific paths by tracing a line on the DS's touchpad, or even get them to activate switches, carry items, or attack enemies. The cooperative puzzles you'll need Zelda Phantoms for start off quite simply. Getting their invincible frames to block a column of fire so you can move Link past, for example, or hitching a ride in their shield to traverse lava pits. But by the end of the game, they'll get increasingly complex and will require you to use different types of phantoms to solve problems. Even more tricky are several boss battles that require you to control a Zelda Phantom and Link. These fights are tense and exciting, requiring fast reflexes as you're forced to quickly switch between the two characters to find an opponent's weak points. You can control only Link and Zelda in the Tower of Spirits, an area you'll have to visit several times to gain new maps that open up Spirit Tracks to different parts of the game world. Phantom Hourglass veterans who are worried that the Tower of Spirits is simply another name for the annoying Ocean Temple in that earlier game needn't fear. While you make multiple trips to the Tower of Spirits, the repetition and the time limits of the Ocean Temple have been done away with. Outside of the Tower of Spirits and its dual Link-Zelda mechanic, Spirit Tracks plays similarly to most other adventures in the series. You'll venture into a multi-level dungeon, obtain a new weapon, and then use that new weapon to defeat a powerful boss creature at the end of that dungeon. Many of Link's weapons will be familiar to series veterans, including favorites such as the boomerang, the bow, and bombs. There are new weapons too, including a hookshot-like whip, which Link can use to latch onto beams and swing across chasms Indiana Jones style, and a special wand that can erect walls of sand. Such adherence to formula may be the undoing of lesser games, but consistently clever level design and the tricky but never cheap puzzles in Spirit Tracks means the game is a winning experience at all times. Though the game doesn't stray far from what made the Zelda series great, you'll still feel a palpable thrill when you figure out the way to get that final dungeon key, or use your newly found weapon to take down an initially intimidating boss. You would think that having fixed railway lines to travel on would make moving from location to location boring, but the game throws enough variety at you to make most trips interesting. As well as using your train's horn to scare away livestock clogging up your tracks, or using your cannon to blast away roving enemies, you'll have to contend with demon trains cruising the tracks. You'll need to plan ahead to avoid these enemies, keeping a close eye on your map and switching lines when necessary to make sure you don't end up on a collision course. Crashing into one of these enemies is the biggest negative of riding a train in Hyrule. You become familiar with the crushing feeling of inevitability that comes when you've made a mistake switching lines and are forced to simply wait until the collision. And every hit sends you right back to where you started from your trip, resulting in a fair bit of repetition. The game's controls are simple and intuitive, with the touchscreen and the stylus used for all movement and actions. You simply hold the stylus on the screen to move Link, and tap or slash on enemies to attack. It was a winning control scheme 2 years ago when it was used in Phantom Hourglass, and it's lost none of its positives today. The DS's microphone gets another workout this time around though. You can use it as a weapon by blowing into it to send a gust of wind at enemies, and you need it to use to play the Spirit Flute. You'll learn several songs that you can play on the ocarina-like instrument throughout the course of your adventure, with each song having special effects, such as healing you in dungeons and unveiling hidden chests. Side quests aside, Spirit Track features more than 14 hours of play in the main story, but there's plenty to do outside of trying to stop Malatus. As in most Zelda games, there are plenty of hidden secrets and chests to track down, and many are inaccessible until later in the game when you have unlocked all of Link's weapons. The game also comes with a fun 4-player competitive mode which, in a plus, can be played by using one game cartridge and the DS's download play option. It's a pretty simple setup. You and 3 other players race around a single level dungeon trying to grab as many Force Gems before the timer runs out. Multiplayer games, especially with a full complement of players, are usually hectic and lots of fun as you scramble to grief other players in order to steal their gems. But with only 6 maps available, multiplayer is more an interesting little distraction rather than a fully fledged time sink. The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks hasn't improved markedly on the visual scene in Phantom Hourglass, which isn't a problem considering that the first game looked great on the DS. Spirit Tracks is just as impressive, with the colourful world containing a surprising amount of detail to help bring the land of Hyrule to life. And while there's no dialogue in the game, aside from some grunts and squeals, the audio is impressive, with a tuneful soundtrack mixing seamlessly with classic sounds from the Zelda series history. You'll find plenty that's familiar in The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, but the inclusion of new mechanics such as controlling both Link and Zelda, and the simple joy of driving the train, lift this game above being just another Zelda adventure. This game is a top-notch adventure, and whether this is your first or 10th time in Hyrule, Spirit Tracks is a must-play.